What is up, YouTube? Today I had Will Scouching on, and he is an incredible source. I love his content. You should check him out. Links are in the description. But for some reason, our video kind of got distorted. There was just our cameras were on the entire time, but it didn't really record at all. So it's just the mock draft. It's a top 16, so please enjoy.
The Islanders, eh? So, I mean, to me, this is going to be Matthew Schaefer. If I'm the Islanders, like, I look at their prospect pipeline and they don't have a ton really there to really like say as a cornerstone. I know they've got Cole Iserman and some of their better defensemen are still pretty young. So, I think the Islanders got extremely lucky, obviously, with the lottery results, and they're going to get a chance to add, I think, a really, really special defenseman. I mean, Schaefer is insanely dynamic, insanely creative, but plays an offensive brand of hockey that I think projects really, really well to the NHL, where it's not all speed and skating and skill. It's a combination of all of those things and awareness and creating passing lanes and creating opportunities in ways that he makes just really good reads of the opponent and just drives really, really great results everywhere. Not a perfect player, but definitely a player I could see playing a lot of minutes in the NHL, quarterbacking a power play, and being defensively capable enough to do a really good job chipping in there. And for the Islanders, I think he's the best player available. The youth, the style of play, I can't really argue with anything there. I mean, it's just really, really good. And I mean, yeah, he's a pretty clear number one for me. So for the Islanders, that's the guy who it's going to be.
Matthew Schaefer's player comp for himself, he said, was Mir Hiskinen as well as Cale Makar. His assistant coach at Erie Otters also said Cale Makar. I think this guy's an elite top pairing defenseman in the future. So I think the Islanders run up to
Yeah.
the podium or actually to their phone to call it in.
True, yeah.
And then for number two, I think the Sharks are going to go with Michael Misa here. I just feel like this is going to be the pick. I really like Michael Misa. As a Hawks fan, I'm really sad because I really wanted him. I think he'd be a perfect Jonathan Toews-esque player. I asked him at the combine who his center comps were because his winger comps were Kucherov and Kirill Kaprizov. So his center comps was Sidney Crosby and Patrice Bergeron. I think Jonathan Toews as well, Captain Serious a little bit too. I think
Hmm.
that he's versatile. He's going to be a great 1-2 punch with Celebrini. Something that goes overlooked in his game, I think, is his two-way game, his defense, and he's incredible at point production. Obviously, see in that OHL historic season. Misa is one of those guys that I think the Sharks are going to love to have on their team.
I have no words. I have no disagreement there. This is what I would do if I were them too at this point for sure.
And then at number three, who do you think the Blackhawks are going to take?
Well, this is where it's going to get very interesting. There are a lot of options here. I know a lot of people might be very, clearly looking at guys like Martone or Hagens. I'm not convinced that that's what's going to go down on draft day. And thinking about how Chicago has drafted in the past, and oh man, it's really hard. But I think that a guy like, ooh, we'll go with Caleb Desnoyers. I think the Chicago Blackhawks really love him. I think the Chicago Blackhawks really love these. He's got a lot of physical development to go. I think he's 6'2", but I don't think he quite has filled out as much as he could. He's a really smart and gifted playmaker. He's a player who I'm not sure is a huge line driver at the NHL level, but you play him. I mean, heck, if you wanted to put him at center and put like a Connor Bedard on his wing, he's going to score goals. Desnoyers will find a way to get him the puck, and it kind of alleviates that offensive responsibility. And maybe then Desnoyers is your first line center. I think in terms of his own capabilities, I wouldn't put him that high. But at the end of the day, I think he's just a really, 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 really solid player that NHL teams seem to adore. And there's especially, I think, once you hear that both of his wrists were injured all year, I think teams will look at that and go, okay, he was still this good with those injuries, and we'll buy the upside here and see what he can do next year. He's younger than a lot of the other guys in this cohort. He's an '07, so a lot of these guys are '06s. And for me, it's maybe not the direction I would go if I'm Chicago, but I do think that Desnoyers is there's a lot of talk about him potentially being the guy here at three, but there's 3 or 4 guys I could easily see going here to Chicago, but Desnoyers seems to make the most sense based on what they look for in a player.
I completely agree. Desnoyers is a true center. Those two bum wrists, I think, are really going to help him out, just specifically with what happened in the Memorial Cup because he played pretty good in the first two games in the Mem Cup, and he obviously had an incredible playoff in the Q. And I just feel like this would be the kind of pick the Blackhawks would want. Get a 1-2 punch with Bedard and Desnoyers, as well as Desnoyers could be a Taze-like player. I mean, that was his player comp at the combine as well. So getting a Taze where you have that offensive upside, as well as one of the best defensive forwards in the entire draft, I think it would just be really good. And I also think Anton Frandel would also fit here for the Blackhawks. I don't think it's going to be Hagens or Porter Martone. So for Utah at 4, I think this is also an interesting one because a lot of players have fallen. We've heard Brady Martin a lot recently, or just what could they possibly do at 4? And I think a trade down would be necessary to try to take a player like Brady Martin. But right here, I'm going to actually take Anton Frandel. I know that they've liked Desnoyers a lot, and obviously he gets picked up right before them. So I feel like they would want a player like Desnoyers to get drafted here. But I think Frandel has one of the best shots in the entire draft. He was great this season. And obviously Victor Eklund was a play driver with him, but Anton Frandel probably has the best shot as well as slap shot in this entire draft. He possesses a lot of what I think could succeed as a forward or a center. So you have versatility there. I think Utah is just looking they've liked Frondell for a very long time in this class, and they lucked out getting 14 or from 14 to 4. So I think just take who they see as best player available. I don't think that they go for Martone or Hagens, so I think it's going to be a surprise pick, and Hagens and Martone both fall. So
Fair
yeah,
enough. Yeah. I mean, I could see something like this happening too. Utah doesn't seem like the type of team that looks at a guy like Hagens, especially the as maybe as desirable. But I've been surprised in the past by what Utah does. So who knows? But I guess we can throw it back to me here for Nashville, right? So Nashville at 4. I mean, if it's me and this is how things go, like you said, running to my cell phone and calling in
yeah,
James Hagens. I think Hagens is being sold up the river a little bit these days. I mean, I saw him at the combine. I wasn't there. You were, but I wasn't. And I saw him say things along the line that he was saying things along the lines of like, people forget how good I was at the under 18s last year and how good I was at the World Juniors and like I've won a gold medal at the World Juniors and I've already done all of these things in my career. So like I also have a perfectly reasonable path to being drafted high in this draft as well. And I think he's right. I think some people see that as potentially a certain level of entitlement or something, but I personally see that as an absolutely fair assessment. I look at James Hagens and I see a player who has huge growth this season. He started the year, I think, a timid college player who was learning how to deal with that kind of pressure and that kind of a situation, physical pressure, I should say, not like emotional pressure, and was really kind of struggling to create separation off the puck, play physical when he needed to. There were just a lot of things with his game that I was sort of sitting back and going, ugh, like this is a bit of a question mark. But I'd say the World Juniors for him were a turning point. He went back to junior competition, looked more than comfortable there. And then down the stretch of the season, he really turned a corner. He was way more physically engaged, way more active off the puck, making plays way quicker, and has had some really impressive moments in the offensive zone as a playmaker. I think that you can genuinely look at his game and go, I would love for him to be able to create more shooting opportunities for himself. He's got a great shot, but I didn't see it nearly enough. But I think in terms of just dynamic skill and skating ability and just upside, especially because Nashville drafted a guy he has played historically extraordinarily well with in Teddy Stiga last year. Every time I saw those two play together this year, they looked great. And every time I saw Hagens play with Leonard and Barreau, I felt like it wasn't a really great mashup of talent. But at the end of the day, James Hagens is the guy here for me. I think he's a great player. I think Hagens is a player who is the best player available on my list at this point. And in Nashville, I think he's exactly what they need. and a great fit who can help enable the guys he plays with to score goals, which they're going to need.
Really like James Hagens. I got to talk to him in person for about 25 minutes. He had a water at a coffee. So it was just really cool. He's a really cool guy. He likes deep dish pizza too, so I'd love him in Chicago. He said his player comp was Jack Hughes, and also he loves Teddy Stiga. I asked him to take me through that play because a couple plays before we actually talked about this. He had a chance to put the game away, but the goalie made a pad save. But if he would have lifted the puck, I think his
Hmm.
draft season would have been a lot different. He would have been the gold medal winning player. So I don't
Now
think a
we're
lot of people
talking.
talk about that. Yes.
Yeah.
And then he said that. He actually he was very cool with me. He was open and he was just like, yeah, he said Teddy got the game winner, so he was really excited for him too, and they're really good friends.
Hmm.
But he did have an opportunity to put it away, but obviously it didn't things didn't happen the way that he specifically wanted at that moment, but then Teddy helped him and they played incredible. So they won gold medal and that's kind of what they were doing and looking for there. Porter Martone, he only played 10 minutes a game for 3 games and he scored a goal and Michael Misa didn't even get invited. I know that wasn't based on hockey,
Right.
but it's still something that we should talk about. So James Hagens was the most productive player, even though Schaefer played a game in 4 minutes in the Worlds. But if we're talking about top 5 picks, he actually was the most productive player in the Worlds. So I think that I would like him to go anywhere from 3 to 5. I think that Nashville is going to be where he gets picked up, and I think it's going to be an absolute steal because this guy's going to be a absolute dog. I see Logan Cooley, I see Frank Nazar, I see Jack Hughes-esque type of player, and I just want Hagens on my team. Incredible vision, incredible playmaker. I think that he played the Will Smith role, but he was put in a position that was very hard from him, obviously. But I will go to 6 because I don't want to talk your guys' ear off on Hagens because I can forever. I think 6 for Philly. They are actually going to go with Jake O'Brien based on everything
Mm.
that I've heard at the combine and how much they love this kid. Jake O'Brien is one of the best passers I've ever seen. I mean, every puck is flat. That man, I asked him at the combine, he's just like, "Yeah, you're born with it." I was like, "Damn, Jake, holy crap!" Like, thank you. Honestly, it was just one of those things where he is incredible at vision. He was the best player in Brantford, and Nick Larda scored 72 goals. So just think about that for a minute. People call him a power play merchant, and I'm like, no, he's a very special player on the power play as well. It's just an added bonus for him. He has a lot of skill, a lot of raw upside though, but I think that he is just one of those players that could go a lot higher than we think. I think he was this year's Beckett Seneca before and then the cat got out of the bag. But I think people would have been very surprised if there wasn't all these clips and everything in the internet because he was just kind of a late riser. And then throughout the season, he just proved time and time again of how elite he was with his playmaking and his vision and his passing. So I really think him and Mitchkov on a power play would be fantastic. Um, I think Philly is going to go center, so I think that getting a right-handed center with Jake O'Brien is going to be exactly who they go for.
Fair enough. I mean, Jake O'Brien crossed my mind for Chicago. I think there's a decent chance that a guy like O'Brien goes really high this year. I agree. Really good passer, really intriguing playmaker who I think brings a lot to the game. For Boston at 7, this is going to be tough too. Boston hasn't had a high draft pick in quite a long time. I can't remember the last time they had a top 10 pick, honestly. And I I don't know if there's part of me that thinks they trade it. There's part of me that thinks they might look at something that could make their team better right now. But I do think there's a big chance that Boston is entering a bit of this like retool slash rebuild era. And I think, knowing what I know about the Boston Bruins and how they think, I think a guy like Radim Mertka goes here. It's been a
Wow.
while. Well, it's you don't see defensemen not get drafted in the top 10 very
Yes.
often at
Yeah.
all. Mertka is big and he skates pretty well for a big guy, right hand shot defenseman, relatively young as well, born in June, he just turned 18 and he's already just a I don't even know what word I would use to describe him. He's a boulder on skates, and I think that the Boston Bruins are still the Boston Bruins, right? They love their guys who are big and play good defensive hockey, and I think Murtka could become a really, really intriguing player for them. There's going to be lots of opportunity. They have almost nothing in the prospect cupboard. Is Murtka the best player available for me here? I don't think so, but I think Boston, they love these sort of physically intense guys who can erase guys along the boards and skate well. And I know Porter Martone is still available, but I look at Porter Martone and I see a player that I think NHL teams are a little spooked about, a little bit, going, well, is he going to be a really high end NHL player based on the lack of pace in his game and maybe some physicality notes that are missing? And I get the feeling that teams might get a little bit of cold feet. And Murtka, I think there's a lot more safety, so to speak, in a guy like Murtka projecting to the NHL as a pretty solid middle pair guy who might have some offensive ability, but you really get him for the size, the right hand shot, and the edge work that he has at a guy that size that's pretty good.
You know, the reason that I made that in awe was because Merker was my pick at Seattle, and I really just wanted to talk your ear off on him
Sure,
because Merker's my guy. I love this guy. He is hilarious. He opens up when you give him the right questions, in my honest opinion. I've got to talk to him multiple times this year, and his pro comp for himself is Moritz Seider, so I love that for him. He's been playing professionally since he was 16 in the Czech league. Even had an opportunity to play against Yager and tried to hit him, but he was so evasive and he was so slippery that he
right.
couldn't do it. He doesn't actually have hair on one of his arms because of an injury. So I think that if that's your index, if you have a hair index, mark that one down for Mirka. He doesn't know why it happened, but he thinks it's hilarious. He is just one of those guys that lives and breathes hockey. On the chart here, I actually have not seen Mirka go seven. It's usually a player like Roger McQueen and Brady Martin. So I love that you brought
Sure.
that in there because he could be a Zdeno Chara-esque person in their eyes. I mean, he's also right-handed. Uh, Obviously, it's different, but he is 6'6" right-handed defenseman. He is going to go a lot higher. And in the last 15 years, there's always been two defensemen gone in the top 10. I don't know when the last time there wasn't. So Mirka or Jackson Smith, I don't know which one, will be in the top 10.
Yeah.
And here's the board of who we've picked. And Merker at seven is a really great pick. So now it's my turn at Seattle at eight. And man, I really wanted Merker, but I think they're gonna pick Porter Martone here. I think Porter Martone is just a guy that's falling. I think they should take best player available. Martone is not really it's not ideal, like perfect fit. Like Desnoyers, to Chicago, I could see, or Michael, or say Schaefer to San Jose, like that would be a perfect fit. I think Martone would just be best player available. I think his skating moves are a little bit overblown. I kind of compare him to like an old-timey car where it takes a little bit for him to get going, but once he's going, he could get you to point A to point B. It's
Right.
his first three strides. He's a great shooter. I think he's an incredible passer, and it's underrated. His vision is great, and he's a great playmaker. So I feel like this guy is star upside. And, his pro comps were Corey Perry and Matthew Tkachuk. You see what they're doing in the playoffs. So this was even before the playoffs had happened. And now he reiterated that at the combine. So I really like Porter Martone. I do. I hate that he has to go eight in our mock draft, and I hate that he might slide during the draft because he is just such a good person.
I agree. I mean, I've met Porter. I've been watching him since he was 16. Great guy. Wears a letter, wears the C for his team for many reasons. I think that this is a bit of an overcorrection, but I mean, when you've got a winger who is more playmaker oriented and not the most physical guy in the world in a way that I think NHL teams want, it could happen. Like something like this could happen, and unfortunately it's just a reality of the way things go. But Seattle never seems to mind. They always seem to find a way to land really, really talented players and just see where it goes. Buffalo at 9. Now I'm gonna go a little bit off the board here, but I've talked to some folks, and there's a non-zero chance this happens, I would say. This is a guy who I think they do really, really like. I'm gonna go Justin Carbonneau.
Oh, wow.
Carbonneau is a player that I don't have as high at all as this, but I mean, he's a guy who has, I think, a really, really high level of upside. I think Buffalo is interested in him. Buffalo, if they don't draft him, they will not get a chance to pick him. So maybe they trade down from here if they do really want him. But Carbonneau, in isolated moments, like if the NHL draft were about finding the best highlights and drafting the guy who has the best highlights, he might be a top five pick. Like his ability to protect the puck, his shooting ability, he has some really good playmaking moments as well. Sometimes he's an extremely frustrating player to watch, but the strong moments are really, really strong with Carbonneau. And I know for a fact that there are teams out there with him in their top 10. Like he is no stranger to the really, really high end of the board. I think teams look at him as a player who is comfortable under pressure, a guy who has dual threat offensive potential, and if you put him in the right scenario, he could be a really lethal scoring forward that you just deal with the downside of him. I obviously am not saying this is guaranteed to happen, but I have a growing hunch, that Carbonneau is a guy that's on Buffalo's radar and might be a surprise top 10 pick to the public. But based on reading through tea leaves and reading through the vines here, it's possible, and I think the Sabres are a team that's at least kicking tires pretty hard on a guy like this.
It's very surprising to see, but I actually am with you because I'm not somebody that has Carbonneau in my top 13, 14, but he has the best shot in the entire draft. He could shoot from anywhere. Shout out New Wave Hockey because he put me onto this very early in the season. But this man can shoot from any angle, and obviously it's the shooting percentage. And I mean, he's just going to shoot. It's like Russell Westbrook sometimes when he gets a little confidence and is in his head, he just starts shooting from all angles. Going to the NCAA level, which they obviously got Bill Zonin to try to make him stay, but I think that he's gonna, you know, I've heard from multiple people that he is going to go to NCAA or he has a very good
Yeah.
offer and all of these things. I think going there to the specific school that I have in mind, I think it's going to be a really good fit for him. Carbonneau is going to be able to play against 22, 25-year-old men. It's going to really help him out. The Q, he was the most productive player in their draft year in the Q. He actually
Hmm.
was more productive than Desnoyers, but Desnoyers is obviously better defensively. But Carbonneau can actually go to the Sabres here. I think if they are not into Eklund's size, in my opinion, they go for Carbonneau. He has an incredible shot. Please just watch Carbonneau's highlights if you have not. That dude, he can make your jaw drop in so many ways. The shooting angles and it's just remarkable. So I really like that pick for Sabres at 9. And then Pat Verbeek here at 10. Will he make another surprise pick here? Is he going to go with somebody off the board that should be not here? But I think that he is going to pick Victor Eklund, and I'll tell you why. Victor Eklund Victor Eklund and Leo Carlson are going to now be on the exact same line, and they are going to cook together. I think that Leo Carlson would love somebody like Victor Eklund. Victor Eklund was play driving every game, three, four, five times a game, and setting up Anton Fandel perfectly. This guy plays a lot bigger than his, 168, 70, 170 frame. I know it says 161 on the spreadsheet, but
Right.
he is a lot bigger than that frame. I mean, he plays a lot bigger. He's 5'11", so there's obviously concern, but he was putting up some numbers too in the lower league in Sweden, and I just feel like this guy is going to be a star. He's obviously the brother of William Eklund. I really like the game that William plays too. It's very different, but Victor Eklund's not afraid to get to the middle of the ice. He's not afraid to work in the dirty areas. He will take a hit to make a play, and as well as he's just a really good playmaker, in my opinion. And like I said, he's a play driver. It's kind of like he is kind of like a point guard.
Yeah. I mean, Eklund was going to be my guy here for Pittsburgh, so darn. Trying to think of the right word there without, being not PG. But anyway, I mean, I'd be very pleasantly surprised to see that happen, honestly, with Eklund. I love Victor Eklund. He's top five for me. I love him to death. I think he's a fantastic player who projects to the NHL really, really well. I don't know if he'll be like a point a game guy in the NHL, but he's gonna be a guy I think you win games with. Uh, that was gonna be my guy for Pittsburgh, and I know Pittsburgh's kicking the tires on him pretty good, but
Yeah, they are.
I think if I'm Pittsburgh, I mean, I live in Toronto. I've seen how Kyle Dubas and I've seen how Wes Clark draft. It's a new era for Pittsburgh. Wes Clark is not afraid to stick his neck out on a guy. I think they're going to go with Lyndon Lakovic here. I
Wow.
love Lyndon Lakovic. I think he is a fantastic person, really great kid, very studious, really wants to understand everything he can know about the game, really loves to pick apart his opponents, and the size and the skill level are basically unmatched, I think, in this year's draft in combination. He's 6'4", 6'5". I know he compares himself to a guy like Tage Thompson, even though he's a winger and he said he was going to be a winger for his career, I think he said. And I think that's totally reasonable. I think that you're going to need a good coach who can sort of get into his head a little bit and sort of get him to put in a little bit more off the puck and close gaps a little quicker and be a little bit more engaged because that's, I think, a pretty major flaw in his game. But I think he's aware of that. I think he knows that. And I think that's something he consciously wants to be more cognizant of. He was a huge driver of offense on the ice for his team. They did not have a great season, but he was a huge part of that. He took over the captaincy, and it does not surprise me in the slightest having met him. Really, really great kid. I think Pittsburgh loves these sort of smart, tactical, chess player type hockey players, and I think Lakovic is one of those, and the upside is really, really big. And I think it's entirely possible that we see him go to Pittsburgh in this year's draft.
I really like this Lyndon Lakovic pick. The reason that I was surprised is because, you know, Kyle Dubas has the Sioux, 2013, 2014
Yep.
connection. I thought you were going to take Brady Martin there, but Lyndon Lakovic is incredible. When I asked him about playing more physically, and he said, like to your point, like he was trying to learn how to play in that bigger frame. He actually didn't know how to do it because he was such a skilled forward that just happened to be 6'4". And I think that it kind of gets knocked that he's not more physical, but he's basically a 5'10" forward that just happens to be 6'4". He has
Yeah.
incredible hands, great great skater in my opinion. I think that it kind of goes overlooked a little bit, his skating, and I think it's only going to get better as he gets more comfortable with his body. When he first joined the WHL, he said that he was just trying to dangle through three defenders every single time. He didn't understand how to play in that 200-foot game. He kind of
Mhm.
had to implement it as he got older. Obviously, Moose Jaw didn't have the best season this year, but last year they were champions, and he learned a lot about that. After they got Savoy, they couldn't lose a game. I mean, they were up playing Fortnite for till 4 a.m., he said, and they were just dominant. I think that he had to learn a lot coming into the dub, but he's only gotten better. So I really like this pick for Pittsburgh. I think that the Pittsburgh could get back-to-back picks here because we have no idea what the Rangers are going to do with that condition. But right here, I'm going to have the Rangers pick because we don't know what's going to happen. I mean, it's a
Yeah.
lottery pick.
Yeah.
But so for me, I think the Rangers are just going to run up to the board and select Roger McQueen here, not because like of anything other than best player available and he has the highest upside. I think Roger McQueen would be fantastic to go to the Rangers. They're losing a lot of their forward depth a lot, but 6'5" right-handed centers don't come out often. And somebody that has this much skill, this much like he has really great hands. You see the mobility that he has at 6'5" too. I know the back injury is going to make him fall here because I think he's a top 8 potential player. He had 4 goals in his first game, and I think that people were kind of screaming top 5, top 3 pick after that game. Obviously, that was recency bias after the first game, but he was heating it up in the WHL. He had 20 points in 17 games. I think that this guy in a full season without the back injury would have been a lot higher. So I really like McQueen's game.
Fair enough. I mean, I think this is around the range he goes anyway. There is upside there, and he's a wild card. We'll see. I will make the admission that I have made the cardinal sin of doing mock drafts and totally forgot that Brady Martin was not picked yet. So I kind of have to do it here. I mean, in reality, I feel like Martin is going top five. I mean, personally, I still feel like Nashville should go with Hagens. I still feel like Chicago could very well go with Desnoyers. But at the end of the day, Brady Martin to Detroit, I think just makes a ton of sense as well. I think he fits everything that the Red Wings are all about with their draft picks. He is, I would say, a very intriguing echo of Marco Casper, where the offensive upside is solid. I think his offensive upside is a little more limited than Martin or than Casper. But I think Martin's defensive game and energy and physicality will make up for that. He's a much better, I'd say, two-way force on the ice. I think that his game is more like 40-60 offense defense, but I think that can improve with time. He's a guy who I think needs to battle to the net more, but he has all the tools to do so. So for me, Martin here just makes sense. It also doesn't hurt that when you look if Martin is facing away from you in his Sioux Greyhounds jersey, it looks an awful lot like a Detroit Red Wings jersey. So that is a nice little sort of nice little continuity thing. And so yeah, Martin here, he will be gone by now. In reality, I forgot he existed, and I thought he was already gone in this draft. But I'm gonna send Brady Martin to Detroit on this one here.
About a month ago, this is exactly where he was going. So this is definitely a Stevie Y pick in my opinion. If you look at Brady Martin, he's only like 172 pounds, but he's farm tough. If he hits you, you're gonna feel it for a long time. He was actually worried because he has 80,000 chickens, I think, like of a lot of cows and a lot of pigs on his
80,000
farm. He
chickens?
has 80,000 chickens on his farm, and he was so worried about the amount of chores that were piling up while he was at the combine. He said he hoped his brothers were going to help him out there, but he doesn't know for sure. I thought that was pretty funny. He was killing every interview as well. I think he did meet with Detroit as well. I know he met with a lot of other teams, but I'm pretty sure that so one thing is Stevie Y actually has seen Jake O'Brien 3 times live, and nobody really goes to the O. So they could be a trade up option for a player like Jake O'Brien. But if Brady Martin is there at 13, they're gonna celebrate and probably go out to town that day because that would be absolutely nuts. And obviously, there's just so many good players. I mean, the only one I would like think like every single player could go in this order, in my opinion. I think it's more of a deeper draft than people have been onto. I mean, I've been watching these kids for years, so I really, it's interesting to always see who rises and then who's the faller. Like Hensler was always a top 8 player for me the before his draft year, as well as Ivan Ryabkin, and now all of these guys. It's like you can't put those guys even near this range. So I think Brady Martin would be fantastic. And then Columbus at 14. I really like this pick for Columbus because I think, you have a guy in Jackson Smith here that I think is just falling. I know that there's talk that he's going to go to a state school in the NCAA, and that actually is not confirmed yet. But he definitely could do that. I think that his production level in the WHL this year was not the greatest from what kind of ceiling we can see from Jackson Smith. I think he's more of an offensive defenseman than he let on. He didn't put up those insane point totals, but this guy's like 6'3" and a quarter. And when you look at somebody with that much size, and then he does have more defensive awareness than a guy like Kevin Korchinski, that when I watch the dub, they kind of look similar. I think that Jackson Smith could potentially run a power play 2, in my opinion, and maybe a quarterback power play 1. He does have that kind of upside. So I just think that this would be best player available for Columbus here.
Makes sense to me. I could see that happening, and it seems right up their alley. Just bet on tools and try to develop them.
Vancouver, who you taking here?
I have no intel on this at all, honestly, with Vancouver. I thought maybe if McQueen were there, he might be the guy. But I am gonna go with Logan Hensler here.
Nice.
I think Hensler is a guy who went kind of undervalued. I thought the first half of his season was really tough. I thought looked underwhelming at the World Junior relative to the other draft eligible guys that were there. He didn't play a ton, I don't think. And I think that at the end of the day, Hensler's a guy who I think had a much better second half of the NCAA season with Wisconsin. And I think that in terms of on ice play, he brings a lot of things that I think Vancouver values. I want to say, like, he's very mobile, a really good skater. He has a little bit of that offensive ability. They went out and got a Victor Mancini earlier this season in the JT Miller trade. And not saying that Hensler is similar to that guy, but they're both pretty big and pretty mobile and a little bit more offensive leaning at times. But they're not slouches defensively either. I don't think Hensler's perfect. I think he does have some development to go from here. We'll see what happens at Wisconsin over the next little while. But I think at this range, like, you take your defenseman, he's a right-hand shot, bet on his development over the next 3 years, and you might have a good sort of middle pair, two-way guy who can chip in offensively and just get around the ice well and just play smart, efficient hockey. And I think that's the type of defenseman that NHL teams seem to really, really like.
You know, Hensler is higher on my board than probably consensus or where he'll be drafted. I think that here's a couple of things. He's a Minnesota kid. Love Midwest players because they just have a different kind of grit to them, in my opinion. I'm from the Midwest, so it's probably not that. But I think that his player comp was a right-handed Jake Sanderson. I really did like that. He has a lot more offensive upside than he showed at Wisconsin this year. He was the youngest player on his team and the second youngest, most productive player, U19, as a defenseman in the entire NCAA. He was actually better than people thought. I mean, if you look up Jake Sanderson's points per game, Logan Hensler played 10 more games and had three less points. But I mean, he Logan Hensler was a sit and duck out there at sometimes. He was just not acting like Logan Hensler. After he gets comfortable, it's like being in anything. Once you get more comfortable, you're going to be a lot better. And I think that's going to be exactly what Logan Hensler is going to be. As soon as he gets more comfortable, this guy's going to show his offensive prowess. If you look, whenever he did not think and wasn't overthinking, this guy was making incredible plays. You can see that wraparound, I think, against Notre Dame, where he wrapped around the entire defense and then passed it off to his center right in front of the net for a goal. He has that potential. I've actually talked to him about this exact spot where Vancouver is. He would say it would be a dream to go there because they have players like Quinn Hughes that can help him off offensively. Right-handed defensive players are going to go a lot higher. It's just like any like it's not like a quarterback because it's different, but are valued higher on draft boards. So I think Logan Hunter would be fantastic here. And then for Montreal at 16, I think that they're going to run up and take Carter Bear. And I really like Carter Bear because he is skating already. He said that he is going to start participating in off-season activities. And I think that means that the lacerated Achilles he dodged a bullet with. His I asked him what his biggest strength was in player comp. He said his biggest strength is his hard skill as well as his drive and intensity and tenacity. I think that is what kind of brings players to play an elevated game of the playoffs. He said his player comp was Brandon Hagel. I think Brandon Hagel is a fantastic player comp for him. I just think that that's like a player that, any team would kind of want to have, especially in the playoffs. I'm really high on Bear. I think he's a very humble player, grounded. He is the injury right before the playoffs for Everett really hurt them. But I mean, he's just a really good person. So I think besides all of that, the hockey, I think he's just going to be a really good player. And for Montreal, I think that that's somebody that they would need. And it's a very high upside.
Yeah, I could easily see that as well. And I think with Montreal with back-to-back picks, if they're not going to trade one or both of these for help now, I mean, Bear is a little bit further along, I'd say, in sort of the physical development and kind of what you want out of a guy like that. And you can afford to take on some risk, I think. You've drafted a ton of times in the last few years, and if Bear is the guy you really love and you feel like there might be a little bit of risk to him, I feel like you can still just go for it and see how it goes. Because I think at the end of the day, you get a guy who has a pretty solid floor, really good skill, really good talent, and physicality. I don't know. I think there's a lot to like about Carter Bear. So at 16, yeah, I could see it happening. It's lower than I have him ranked. So yeah, I think it would be good value in that range for sure.
And Carter Bear is a multiplier. If you draft this guy, he's going to be able to narrate all the team documentaries. Like it's just going to happen. So I feel like that is also something, the deep voice that he has, I think that would be something that would definitely happen. But I'm going to go to the spreadsheet here. And this is the top 16 that we did. Comment down below, like who you think would be, who would be too low or who you disagree with. But I think that we did a pretty good job, and this was a pretty awesome list.
Yeah, I mean the only thing I think I would swap is I forgot that Brady Martin was available, and if he's there for Boston at 7, they're gonna do it. I feel like that it's just gonna happen. But Mertka's still a guy who might go there, right? Like the idea that a defenseman would go 6 picks after the first pick overall, it's been done before, but usually, like you said, defensemen go in the top 10. Multiple defensemen go in the top 10 almost all the time. And a big right-hand shot defenseman. I mean, like you said, Mertka was your guy for Seattle, so maybe that bumps him down then, but that's the only one. Other than that, a lot of this I can absolutely see breaking out the way that it broke down here.
So really quick, but Boston goes with Martin, and then Merck goes Seattle, and then Sabres probably go like
I would think
Martone.
tone, yeah.
I think it would just be really interesting. This draft is going to be one of those weird ones where I don't think anyone's prediction is going to be correct,
Nope.
or everyone's prediction is going to be correct. It's just going to be one of those.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, honestly, if you just like, if you took Mertke, Martone, Carbonneau and just shifted them down a pick and Eklund, I feel like that's how it could break down. And then Lakovic is the one that goes maybe to Columbus or Vancouver or Montreal. Then I think, you have something that might be a little more realistic. But I mean, based on what's out there, I would say I wouldn't be surprised if the top six break out in some way like this in reality. You never know, though. There's still 2 more weeks for people to change their minds and go crazy. So I'm excited. It's going to be a good time.
And I am just so glad that we got to collab before the draft. This was
Oh, yeah.
absolutely awesome. You are a great informational piece for any person. I mean, you could talk to this guy or comment anything, and he will just know everything about hockey. I mean, all prospects. So thank you so much for coming on. And every description below that he is doing will be in the comments or the
Oh, yeah.
description. Yeah. So thank you so much again for coming on.
Anytime, man. Thank you very much for having me. It was a pleasure. This was a lot of fun.